Ah, okay. Oh, what have I done? Darn. This isn't the file I intended to upload. What happens if I do this? All right. Okay, I'm going to go somewhere else and grab something else, and we're going to finish talking about this, and then I will get things cleaned up. I'm sorry, I don't know what I did. It worked upstairs.
It might be worth opening it again, though.
Let's try.
The one that I pulled has more.
Well, you know, browsers will give you what's in their cache instead of more slowly going out and looking at the web, depending upon how you have your defaults set up. And so I might be screwed. Let's see. Let's try it, though. I love good ideas. Let's find out. I think we got a shot here because that, yep, nope, that's not. All right, this is good. No, that's different. All right, but this is what we care about. Wait, let me see. Yes, okay. I'll sort this out, I'm sorry. Okay, research loop. Now, this is the same thing we've studied since they taught us the scientific method in 4th grade, 3rd grade, wherever you got it. Maybe a few more steps, maybe a little more focused on behavioral science, but it's the same stuff. It starts with figuring out what we already know. Because one thing you don't want to do is generate a hypothesis that other people are tired of. I was once in the 3rd study of a programmatic series before I realized that I had perfectly mimicked the first 2 and was in the process of perfectly mimicking the 3rd. It was cool enough that I was able to take the replications to a couple of conferences, but it never saw press. From that, we generate a hypothesis. A hypothesis needs to be cool enough that other people think it will produce new information. From the hypothesis, we build the research design. The purpose of the research design is to collect data to test the hypothesis. I'm going to say that again. A research design is created to test a particular hypothesis. Not just to collect data, but to collect data based on a set of decisions and practices that will give us a really good test of that particular research hypothesis. I've been telling you, and I'll keep telling you, we like theory-driven, empirically tested hypotheses as the way we stack information. We like all kinds of other things too, but particularly as a young researcher, you've got to make sure that you're being honest and clear which things are supporting your guesses and which things are really cool stuff we found, and now I want to guess that for next time. Collect data, analyze data, test hypotheses, draw conclusions. Now here's the important part I want to emphasize. There are 3 applications of this research loop. Clearly the sexiest one is testing novel research hypotheses. You've looked at the same literature that hundreds, thousands, bunches of other people have looked at. You saw a hole in it and found enough information that everyone else has missed to make a guess about what the answer to that new question will be. That is, without a doubt, the coolest. We use the research loop for replication. Be sure your conclusions about a particular hypothesis are correct by repeating exactly the same research design. That all your elements of measurement, internal and external validity are the same, giving you a shot at getting the same results. If you run things differently and you find different results, nah. And it is a great way as a young scientist, especially a graduate student, to get positive attention. If a research literature is not finding replication, and you're the one who figures out what they're doing that's not replicating, that's why they're not getting replication, then you run the study to show that you can get both sets of results depending upon how you run the study, you will get positive attention, except by the people who published those two things. So you can only do so much. And then there's convergent research. Convergent research is really tied to that notion of how far can we push it. We're going to decide how far we can push it by running different versions of the study. Different external validity elements, which we haven't talked about yet. Different internal validity elements, which we haven't talked about yet. Different measurement validity elements, same thing. So we look to see what variations of the study give what results. You know, when you run this as a laboratory study, you get the effect. When you run this as a field study, you don't. Or when you run it as a field study, more often, I get a bigger effect running it as a non-experimental field study than I do running it as a laboratory experiment. I better figure out how that worked. So there are these three applications of this that are really, really important. Now, just a touch of history and philosophy. If you're even older than me, I know, you might have grown up in a time when the critical experiment was taught. And the notion of the critical experiment comes from physics and chemistry, who have also abandoned it. And the idea of the critical experiment is there's one best way to run a piece of research. And if you run it that way, you find the one best answer. And anything else isn't it? We've abandoned that idea because we know that there's not just one way to run a study, and that sometimes running the study different ways gives different answers. Sometimes we expect it to, other times we don't. But the reason for convergent research is the failure of the critical experiment. What is that one true way to run a study? Now, it's not bad when you're trying to mix oxygen and hydrogen in a lab setting to produce water, and the rate at which you introduce those to each other has an impact on the amount of water. You know, you can talk about better and poorer ways of running that. That's because we know a lot about the chemistry of those two atoms and that molecule. We know a whole lot less about people, animals, societies, groups. And so the idea that we can just sit there and decide that's the right way to run the study, all others sucketh, it's not going to work. We gang up on things. We converge on things. Converging operations. Converging operations is the idea that you keep banging on it until you find one of two things: consistency or an understanding of what drives inconsistency. I want to make clear, those are two acceptable outcomes. Running it a bunch of different ways and finding consistent results just means it's easy. But the other acceptable conclusion is running it different ways, getting different results, and figuring out why you get different results. Is it an external validity thing that's going on? Is it an internal validity thing that's going on? Is it a measurement thing that's going on? Or is it chance? All right, I want to tell you a story. What I'm trying to emphasize is that this stuff we've known for a long time. And I can tell you a story that's not some deeply meaningful research study, and you can identify all the elements. So this is a story about my schoolhouse. I went to an 8-room schoolhouse, not as cool as a 1-room schoolhouse, but we had 6 grades in 8 rooms. The other 2 rooms were the cafeteria and the gym. Yes, there were bathrooms. Don't go there. That's not what the crick was for. Down over the hill from the school, there was a crick. Here's the thing. We were allowed to go play in the crick. We would come back after recess drenched in mud, water. Nobody cared. You sat down, you started your social studies reading. It's okay. Nobody had ever jumped that crick without splashing and making a mess. So here's the story. Let's go here. And remember our commitment to not be Blue's Clues. New kid came to school. We showed the kid all 8 rooms. Even showed her the janitor's closet. Walked the kid down this hill into the creek, showed them the creek, showed them the forts that we built, the tree house that we built, and said, nobody's ever jumped the creek. The next day, the kid starts talking to the janitor, other kids, other teachers, parents, finding out, so what's this about the creek?
Library research.
Right? That's what it is. I need to know what other people know before I start doing this. A couple days later, kid walks into gym class and says, I can jump the creek.
Hypothesis.
Oh, can you? Grab the kid, go down the bottom of the hill. And then we decided where the kid was going to stand, how many steps they were allowed to take, where they were allowed to land, and what a splash would be.
Research design.
Research design. Notice what we did. When the kid said, I could jump the creek, we didn't say, oh yeah, give me a competitive argument why you can jump the creek. I want to know if your mom thinks you can jump the creek. We didn't say any of those things. We said, show me. Get your ass down to the creek and let's go get some data. We didn't quite phrase it that way, but we could have. Kid jumps the creek. Little son of a bitch. What is the first thing we said?
Do it again.
Do it again, because we believed, even at the age of 8, in the power of replication. No, we didn't. It just seemed natural. So we did. Jumped it 3 or 4 times. Walk over, jump, walk over, jump, walk over, jump. Now we've got novel research hypothesis, we've got replication, but we're unconvinced. Maybe there's something particularly simple about the set of rules and the location we identified. So, come with me, young child. We're going to go down here to where the weeds are. We're going to go up here to where the sand is. We're going to go over here. We're going to take 2 steps less. Sometimes the kid made it. Sometimes the kid didn't. We were happy as soon as the kid was wet, let's be honest. Data analysis, pretty simple, kid wet or not. Hypothesis testing, over and over. First test, replication, convergence. You know this stuff. All we're going to do is hang language on it. We're going to try and build it into a taxonomy so that you've got a multiple choice test in your head for life. That's all I want. That when you say, all right, I like this study, I need to figure out why, because I'm going to have to tell somebody if I like it or not, because we're all reading this, and teacher's going to ask somebody in class, and maybe I can be the smart one tomorrow. This is the multiple choice test. Now, I also have for you more of a slide on each of these steps, but I'm not going to read them to you. The point is, and I hope the point's been made, this is not foreign to us. The challenge for the course is not all the new stuff. The challenge to the course is remembering to do all the stuff that we know. So when we look at a study, we don't just say, all right, who'd they run? And then decide if we like it or not. That we bang every element of validity over and over, every time. That means horrible things. It means reading the method section, and soon it will mean reading the results section. I think you're going to discover that you like it. Because now, when you know more of this stuff, when you've got this stuff in your head, when you've got not just a set of words and a framework, but an action script for how am I going to approach a method section. What am I looking for where? What am I trying to do? What decisions am I trying to make? What evaluations I'm trying? You are now participating when you read an article. You're not just sitting there trying to pack crap into your head. You are a participant observer, and that's way more fun. And you also get a lot more out of it. We did a couple studies where what we did is we created a thing that people had to take notes as they worked through. And we found out that they were remembering 60% of that 4 years later. Without that, they were remembering almost nothing. Details support generalities. Remembering details, some details, fussy details, for some reason, I haven't figured this out, but I believe it. digging out details that you have to work at a little bit sears in the details about the simpler stuff, or the more natural stuff, or the stuff you automatically do. There's this effort effect in critical reading. So I'm trying to make sure that you read things critically, but you're reading for things. Remember the 4 changes? Remember the color changing card trick that had nothing to do about the frickin' cards? You're busy watching the cards and you miss the color changes. Oh my God, how do you miss when somebody changes their shirt? 2 of them. Because that's not what you were looking for. What we're looking for, we're more likely to see. And if we don't see it, we're unlikely to remember it. It might. There is all kinds of incidental memory and things. But that's what I want for you. That's what we're going to do together. Is we're going to try and build this taxonomy so that we can use this taxonomy so that we are reading an article better than the people sitting in the room with us. So that we are designing a study better than the people that are sitting in the room with us, because completeness begets better. All right. Cal, get off the soapbox. Okay, it's a rare day where I'm done early. I try to be done on time every day instead of on average. But if we were to allow on average, I got 7 minutes coming to me. Just kidding. All right, go do your pink things.
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you very much. Keep asking questions. My usual policy is if I get the same question from 2 people, I send the answer to everybody. I don't know. I like that. It feels like sharing. It's like what I'd like to do is all of us be in the backyard, petting the dogs, watching the sprinkler, probably drinking beer.
I drove here. All the water, all walking late at the same time.
Did I tell you that I have a Gabriel? My oldest son is Gabriel. I always wanted a child named Gabriel Peter. My middle name is Peter. 7 generations of Peters. But then the singer Peter Gabriel came out. No way in hell. So he's Gabriel Reed. But yes, thank you.
Pink things?
Thank you.
Thank you. Do pink things have an associated due date?
No, the only thing is that if you are well entrenched in what we did this time, next time may go a little easier.
Yeah, that's what
But
I figured.
listen,
I just want
no.
If it's
Graduate
too high,
schools,
I have to do it.
no, God, no. Graduate school is a scheduling nightmare. So, we can argue that earlier is better, but it all is the big point. Obviously, before you start studying for the quiz, you'd like to get through them, because anything that isn't making sense on the quiz, I'm going to suggest what pink thing to go back to. Because almost all of those pink things were designed either to prep for a test, or because we weren't doing well enough on some part of a test, and I built a big damn pink thing for it.
Gotcha.
So some of them I'd like to think I was, really smart and nailed ahead of time, and other ones were catching up.
Perfect.
I believe in
Thank you.
catching up.
Have a good week, Lewis.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thank
I'm
you
well.
first for allowing me to attend the class.
Absolutely.
And,
You need to send me your stuff so I can register you for the class.
Yes, so that's why I'm talking to you. I was actually talking with the graduate office about the other class, the 942. It's kind of complicated because the registration told me if the class been more than 2 years, you cannot make a late drop for 942.
Would you send me the email of who you're talking to so I can talk to them?
Yes.
They're often nicer to me than they are to you.
Yeah, you know my situation, and I can.
Often they were my student at one point.
You know, I can get an excuse from that.
Send me that and let me see what I can find out.
Okay, thank you, sir.
My usual rule is just write the rules down. Just let me see them written down so I can figure out how to get the right
I will
thing
do it
done.
personally.
Awesome, you're the bomb.
I
Yes,
have a quick question.
Sure.
I've decided that as soon as I complete the class, I start my homework because it's all in my head. So do you think that validity stuff, it will be wise if I do it later because we're going to talk about it a lot on Monday.
I would try a couple of different things and see what you feel comfortable with. Remember, at the end of class, there's two things you ought to be doing. Looking at the pink things to see if that stuff makes sense, and looking at the essay questions to see if you can figure out what part of the lecture went with which of the essay questions.
Okay.
Most people don't study the essay questions because they're best studied in a lump, because they're not just isolated. A whole answer to a question often steals across multiple lectures. But you ought to be able to figure out what part of the lecture I was trying to answer at least part of a question. And so if you can do those two things, you have done what you can do at the end of a lecture.
Okay. All right. So like the thing is very kind of basic. The pink and the orange is for like the homework.
Yes.
Right? And
You can call them homeworks if you want.
Yeah,
Just
right.
remember they're open book, they're not a quiz.
Yes.
They're just practice.
Yes, and the blue one is for the like a quiz.
That's preparing you for the exam. Don't do any blue things yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's save those so that they're fresh when we need them.
Okay, so like the lecture files, which is kind of like a relevant to the PowerPoint, okay? So like today's PowerPoint, and I haven't found the last slides of the PowerPoint that we have.
Try downloading it again.
Okay.
And if you don't get it, let me know and I will just send you the file.
Okay.
Because different browsers do different things about downloading a new version of a file. Sometimes they don't notice it's new,
Okay.
so they give you the old one.
Okay, I understand. All right.
But if you
so-
can't find it, I will send it to you. We know it's up there because several people here nodded their head when I said, do you have these slides? I mean, yeah. And it's tied to when you opened it up.
Okay, so I'll just say if I don't find it. And the homework for the like, hypothesis and the external validity. Okay, so the thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to look over the PowerPoint and the kind of like a lectures
Yeah.
files. It's in the blue files, right, in the top.
Yes.
The lectures ones. And do you think it's wise if you see the study?
No, just go bang on them. Bang on it till it makes sense. It will keep feeding you questions and giving you feedback about each one. And sometimes looking at that slide 10 more minutes won't do a damn thing. Go try stuff. It's a learning by doing sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Think of phys ed class, not history class.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes,
I'd like to take you up on those office hours if you don't have any kind of.
I'll be up there as quick as I can.
It's 2 or 3, right?
2:30,
2:30? All right, 2:30. Thank
and the doors should be open. Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I have these guys. My life is infinitely better than. I like the
Be
butterflies.
back in the classroom. Thank you.
So are you back in the classroom?
I am, yes, Tuesday, Thursday mornings.
You like it?
You know, it's fun. It is fun. They're mostly freshmen this semester, which is always good. And it
Awesome.
was fun to sit in on class and listen. I miss this. Like, this is what I love right here. So, thank you.
You are welcome anytime. We can talk about anything that you do or don't like, or just want to know why the hell do you do that way.
Sounds good. Well, I'll plan to,
But happy to have you here, and I really, really desperately want to be useful. When I got here, they said, "Poof." I would like to do more for you than poof.
yeah, I think Jen and I are trying to get our feet under ourselves for the
Sure.
semester, and then we'll start meeting and figuring out a bit more.
And remember, you don't have to mimic these courses at all. All you got to do is have them ready for whatever they have third. And I think I've said this, and I really mean this. If it were me, I would change the course numbers so that it's explicit that there's a couple of new sheriffs in town. I really think that's important. We changed the content of the courses so dramatically. But remember, at the time, we had 10 of our kids were all that was in there. Now we've got, and that's the other thing, y'all have to decide what your audience is going to be. There's absolutely no reason that you have to do this. I do this because it entertains me, and I feel more useful training. But when first couple of years, it was our kids, just our psych kids, and you should feel comfortable doing that. And if Dave gets whiny about credit production, let me know, and we'll have that conversation, because supporting you is the point. Yeah. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
When we were having a tour, one of the Caitlin,
Yeah.
Hepworth, she told us that we take our quiz, our tests in a lab. Is that true?
Over in the Digital Learning Center in the library.
Okay, so our quizzes will be taken there.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And there's a link at the bottom of this unit webpage to the testing center. Might be worth taking a look at that. I wouldn't be surprised if you have to register something.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you?
Probably. And there's no due date for the pink things or the orange.
No. I mean, obviously you want to get them done
Yeah.
before you start seriously studying for the test. But graduate school is one long scheduling nightmare.
Right.
My job is to stay out of the way and support you when you get to it.
Right. And when you say test, you mean quiz?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
In the old psychometrics language, everything was called a test.
Uh-huh.
Whether it was a test of personality, a classroom test, they liked the word test.
Right.
Now we use the word instrument, but when I use that, it really confuses people because they think I might be talking about a fork. And so I try to use a bunch of different words so that we get used to a bunch of different words.
Yeah. Okay.
But when I'm confusing, do what you just did. Do you mean? Yeah. You're right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, they came back for you. Fine. Last one out, lights and door.
All right, this one's the last one out, but I'm,
You are allowed here as long as you want. I think one day a week somebody else meets in here. You're allowed to come early. I usually have the door open by 8, and you're welcome to stay after. Just close the door and shut the lights off on the way out. If you want to use the computer, that's legit too. This is our room. I certainly think of it as my room. I got 34 years in this room, in one form or another. It used to be my research lab. Where these walls are is just about where my research lab was that I spent, before, until they fixed the building. They gutted the entire basement. You could stand in that corner and see that corner with just support poles. I mean, 60 yards that way is where the other corner is. And so when they let me come back in, he said, "Where do you want to teach?" Well, I want to teach in here, but I want to set up the room. We set it up ostensibly as a data collection room so that back when screens were new and cool, everybody could see the screen a little better. And then I moved in.
we were on a Zoom meeting with Dr. A there, for
Yeah.
our department, but he's like, let's do a meeting at 8 a.m. And Peggy and I
Huh.
said, oh, okay, so anyway, we had to just,
It's an earlier day.
I know. We were on with Broken Bow, so they had to meet before their school started. Like
Right. Listen, if you have to be early or late or come in and out, graduate school's a nightmare.
I know.
And it's a scheduling nightmare. And so what we try and do is create as much opportunity for independence and scheduling as possible. And if you can think of something clever we can do that we haven't thought of yet, let me know. There might be a really good reason we don't do that, but probably not. Let's just make shit work. I'm a farm kid. Make stuff work is every day.
What kind of farms did you go on?
Where I lived, we didn't farm, but 6 different people farmed parts of it. And we had cows and cattle and sheep and horses and goats in the neighborhood writ large. And my dad's, I've never figured out whether it was part of his raising me or just because of his sense of humor, would typically farm me out. He would tell me, so you got to be on the bus at 8, at 6 o'clock you need to be down at John's. He's going to show you how to milk.
I grew up on a dairy farm. That is hard work.
Oh, they're all hard work.
Yes, true. They all are.
Jeez.
They all are.
I think that part of my grip strength is I was a power lifter, still am sort of. But the other part is I think massaging veal. We had a veal farm.
Interesting.
And so,
Yeah, lots of fine motor skills.
there's all these wonderful stories about big league pitchers who milked
Oh, really?
because
They have stronger grip. Interesting.
and it's a weird motion. And it turns out to be the motion that you use for a curveball. The way that you squeeze the ball is it mimics that top-down thing.
Because you kind of,
And a little bit of a hook.
Yeah, I can see that. I have a quick question.
Yes.
About pink things. So I know they're practiced. So I did the ones for today, and you can go back and keep doing them, right?
Yes,
So more
as long as you
practice.
finish one, when I go look, it will know that your best score was complete. When you go back, you don't even have to finish it.
Okay.
Often people will have opened up some of them 4 or 5 times, finished them the first time, and after that, just, I'm gonna check. Just do 3 or 4. Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
Kill it and walk away.
That's good to know. So it takes our best score.
The way I look, it takes the best score.
Okay.
When you look, it will default to most recent.
Oh.
And you'll go, ah! And you'll ask, and I'll tell you. It'll be fine.
Yeah, okay, good. Because that's how I felt. I did the first one, and I was like, oh, I didn't do very good, this first one, and just figuring out what I was
If
doing.
you got all
so I
10,
didn't
you
wanna-
probably have it in your head.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, no, it's not 30 out of 30 because nobody expects you to get the first one. You're supposed to be practicing.
Okay.
If you could do it the first time, if we could count on 3 out of 3 every time, we wouldn't practice.
Right.
It's a crazy idea. But like I told, think phys ed class, not history class.
Like more practice.
Yeah, they told you stuff and then you went out and tried.
Yeah.
Nobody said, okay, so here's how to hit an overhand serve in volleyball, and we're done. No, you went out there, you sprayed balls all over the place for a couple hours, and then they started sort of going where you wanted to, but your hand was sore, so you came back another time.
Yeah.
Phys ed class.
Okay, that's good. Because I, especially like external and internal validity, some of them were really obvious. But
And
some
others
of
are
them
pain in the-
were
it's- yes.
kinda like, oh, I'm not
I'm
really
just
sure.
not sure. Now that'll make more sense when we've taken each of the kinds of validity apart. Once you know what the kinds are, now you're not looking for a thing, you're looking for a bit, and then you know what piece it is. So we're constantly both drilling down and spreading out.
Okay.
And where is the testing site that you talked about?
In the library.
In Love Library?
Yep, in the library, there's a digital commons, and attached to the digital commons is a digital learning center, and it's basically a 175-seat testing center. So click on the thing at the very bottom where it says testing center, click on that link, you might have to register, I don't remember.
Okay.
But that'll warm you up, and then keep asking questions.
The very bottom of our webpage?
The Unit 1 webpage, or the Quiz 1 webpage, go down to the bottom, there's a link.
Okay, and this
There's always a
probably
link.
kind of funny, but my other statistics class, they allowed us to take our notes in, but this one we don't, right?
But we're not gonna do anything with formulas, we're not gonna calculate anything.
Okay, okay.
So no, the stuff that I send you over to do, I want in your head. The essays, I want in your head, and the story problems, okay. So the homeworks, which we don't have any in this unit, but when we get into crunching numbers, the green things homeworks, or how to analyze data.
Okay,
The quiz is something different. The quiz is not how to start with a set of data. The quiz is somebody walks up to you and says, nah. And so it starts with a story problem, usually has some SPSS output. You don't have to go get the output. Somebody brought you a piece of paper and say, does this support my hypothesis?
right.
Can I use causal words? Well, what did you do? So story problem, output, bunch of questions. You will rapidly notice that no matter what statistic we're doing, it's the same set of questions because
Right, yeah.
we're trying to do the same thing no matter what statistic.
Uh-huh.
And so all of that will come. Right now, go work on hypotheses and validity.
Okay, okay.
Trust me.
All right.
This is my 39th time teaching the class.
Only because there's so many different terms to know.
Just relax into it, have faith, let the repetition have its way.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I know, it just seems, and that's why I build a taxonomy. Instead of just saying, here's a whole bunch of words, like, here, you know, these arrange themselves. And if you say to yourself, there's 4 kinds of external validity, that's easier than saying there's 17 kinds of validity. There's 4, and this one has 4, and this one has 2. I can remember that. I spent a lot of time with taxonomists of different kinds, and I am sold on it as pedagogy. I believe in lists. Lists become consciousness. Consciousness becomes action.
Yes, I agree.
The finest poets in the world have taught us that. Enjoy.